What happens in a 12-team playoff come 2024? Well, for starters, there's going to be more parity than ever before in the sport. Like, you're going to see more teams that actually were competitive down the stretch, but just couldn't get over that hump, actually find their way into a postseason. And then all bets are kind of off. But there's also going to be a lot of newcomers, teams that were flirting with the playoffs the last few years, actually punch their ticket. And I figured today, let's go through my teams if I were to be a betting man who I actually think is going to secure a spot in the postseason. Real quickly, if you're new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Thompson. I talk college football daily. If this is the type of content you enjoy, like the video, hit the ring notification, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Who am I way too high on? Who am I way too low on? Tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football fans everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking about our favorite sport, but more importantly, the #1 college football community. Make sure also you're following me on all of the social channels. It's the exact same as my YouTube handle. The link is right down there below at Mr. Cole Thompson. So click subscribe here, go over there, hit follow, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you get all that. And if you want to be a part of the Mailbag Monday, want a question turned into a one-off video, email me, ColeThompsonWriting@gmail.com. And also you can slide in the DMs on Twitter. First team playoffs. So what exactly does this mean? We're in a 12-team playoff. Is that a good thing for college football? No, not in my personal opinion. But I digress. I know I'm in the minority on this one. Whatever. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. What I will say is, this is going to be a lot of teams that we are bringing up that haven't gone before. So if you're wondering, well, what about Oregon? They haven't been in a 12-team playoff. Well, yeah, but they've been before. Florida State, they got snubbed last year, and they've been to the playoff before. But what about a team like LSU? Yeah, they've been to the playoff before. They won a national title. So that's what I'm talking about. Real fast, let's go through it. Penn State. Penn State, in my opinion, has no excuse this year, and they really need a win if you're James Franklin because of all of the scrutiny that's going on behind closed doors. Like, you got to remember that Penn State's always been good. They've always been a good, solid roster. Offensively, they've had some problems. They did upgrade with Andy Kolotnicki coming on in. I like that for Drew Aller going into a crucial year. They got a good running back tandem. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. That's probably the best 1-2 combination in the Big Ten, if not the country, not named Quinshawn Junkins and Travion Henderson. On top of that, they have a good defense. They're moving Abdul Carter more so into a rushing position, which might do wonders for his game. They still have a really good secondary. They still have a great front seven. Tom Allen's going to come on in. It's like a wash, rinse, repeat. You lose Brent Pry, you lose Manny Diaz. Tom Allen, I think, eventually is going to find his way to the ACC since the other two did. So I don't worry about any of that. And the other thing, you have no more Michigan on the schedule. I mean, no more Ohio State on the schedule. So it's like, all you got to do is still go 10-2, and 10-2 is good enough to get you in a 12-team playoff. And knowing the history of what we've seen over the last few years, yeah, they need a #1 wide receiver. Yeah, they probably need some more consistency in the passing game, but they have the talent on the offensive line. You go 10-2, you're probably in the playoffs. Same thing goes for Utah. And Utah's really interesting because they're newcomers to a new conference, but at the same time, they've been flirting alongside like Texas A&M and Baylor and a few other teams to actually be in the postseason. They couldn't get the few ducks to go in their way. Instead, they turned right when they should have turned left. Yeah, Kyle Whittingham. That's a cheat code. That's a cheat code whenever you go anywhere. You also bring back Brayton Keithy. You also bring back Cam Rising. Anybody remember what happened the last 2 times that they played together? Oh, yeah, you won 2 conference titles in the Pac-12. You are the favorites in the Big 12 to win the conference in year 1, which is saying something. But we also know that there is a certain brand of football that comes whenever you go to Salt Lake City. Physical, fast, demonstrative, and more importantly, probably the most underrated test out there, direct. They have an identity, they have a purpose, and they're hell-bent on sending you back to the wood chipper with nothing more than your legs with your tail between your legs and ready to go ahead and cry for mommy. That's what is Utah football. Their schedule, they got some games on there, but you, again, much like everyone else, can lose a game or two and still be in the running for the postseason. It's not like what happened when you were in the Pac-12 and you got left out to dry because, yeah, you went 10-2, but 10-2 just wasn't good enough. You should be fine. Ole Miss. Where's the flaw? Like, you remember the commercial? I just saw a video of this not too long ago. Where's the beef? Like back from Wendy's. Where's the flaw for Ole Miss? Because literally the question that you had was, how do you replace the production of Quinshawn Junkins? And there's this ideology that I can't get behind a lot. It's quantity and quality. The quality of player versus the quantity of players. Well, if you get a certain amount of quantity, that should be able to match the quality of one player. And that's what they did at running back. You bring back Jackson Dart, you bring back Trey Harris, you bring back Caden Priestcorn, you bring back Jordan Watkins, you bring back most of your offensive line, a lot of defensive players. You win the transfer portal once again. Like literally, you came in number 1 with transfer portal rankings. Walter Nolan, Princely Ewan, Manley Ellen. You still have Sertain Perkins. You bring in Chris Paul. At this point, it feels more so like, well, what happens if Ole Miss doesn't win a playoff game? Like, I think many people believe you can write in a permanent marker, which never do on paper if you're trying to erase it later, but you could write on a permanent marker, Ole Miss, somewhere in the 5 through 12 spot, and they'd go, yep, all right, we believe it. But now I think it's more so, well, yeah, you want to make the playoffs, but what if you lose in the first round? And what if you lose to a group of 5 school because you're that 5 seed? What if you don't go to the semifinals? What if this was all for nothing? Because, yeah, it's great to be in the postseason, but you're a team that's built right alongside Georgia, right alongside Ohio State, right alongside Texas and Oregon that should be an actual contender to hoist up the national title. Speaking of which, Miami to me, again, kind of falls in the same category. Where's the flaw? Like, yeah, if you're really going to go down to it, is it actually just at the very top? Is it boosters trying to control the situation? Is it Mario not being able to get over that final finish line? Is it the coordinators? Is it something going on with recruiting? Is it development of talent? Because everything that you want to win a national title, to win a conference title, is there. It 100% is. You bring in Cam Ward. That is easily a huge upgrade for Shannon Dawson's offense. I like Tyler Van Dyke, but we can both agree that this was the quarterback that fits your team a little bit better. You bring in Samuel Brown. That's a wide receiver that understands what Dawson wants from his time in Houston. You get a physical running back to pair alongside Cam Ward and Damian Martinez. Your defense was rebuilt overnight in the second wave of the portal with Simeon Barrow, Jalen Ackerman, Tyler Barron comes on in last night. So again, I'm going to ask you, where's the flaw? If it comes down to mental mistakes, then that's a coaching thing. That's not a personnel thing. From a personnel standpoint, like Miami, they're always overhyped. But this is one of those few years where I say the hype is warranted because you look top to bottom at the roster, there's nothing really to be complaining about, nor should you at all. Here's a wild card, Arizona. Arizona loses Jed Fish in the middle of the night. He goes up to Seattle. Best of luck to him in his future endeavors. Everybody in Tucson hates him. That's just the bottom line. You don't lose Noah Fafita. You don't lose T-Mac. You don't lose Dacario Davis. You don't lose your defense coordinator. You feel pretty good? Because I would. Their schedule is very manageable down the stretch. And in the Big 12, everything is just a chaotic cluster mess that is going to end with an atom bomb of somebody walking away with like half of their face missing, like Gus from Breaking Bad, and they're still going to survive and move on to the next round. That's the Big 12, people. And you get your 2 toughest games out of the way early on. Arizona goes and play Kansas State, and they play Utah. And what if they just split the series? Well, they're able to afford to lose one more game to get to Arlington. Oh, by the way, the Kansas State game, not a conference matchup, so it doesn't hurt their schedule whatsoever. But what if they win both? Noah Fafita to me is already a Heisman sleeper. We don't talk about him enough. T-Mac absolutely is the second best wide receiver in the country. And kind of like last year, I thought Marvin Harrison Jr. was the second best wide receiver in college football. Maybe that means that T-Mac wins the Biletnikoff Award. Dacario Davis is really good. Brent Brennan treats this like this is a dream location. So when you hear people say, this is my dream job, yeah, they're not lying like Edward Orgeron did in The Blind Side. He's telling the truth. They could actually be something of a threat in the Big 12. And I'm not saying that they're going to be the flagship. I think that when you look at what's going on at Oklahoma State, when you look at what's going on in Manhattan, when you look at Salt Lake City, those are programs with more sustainability, but I would not be sleeping on the Wildcats to not be in a postseason picture. I wouldn't be sleeping on Missouri either. They have the easiest schedule in the SEC. That's it. That's it. You know that Greg Sankey, you know that Tony Petitti are going to do everything in their power to get as many teams possible into the playoffs. And Missouri, where's the loss? Again, where is the loss? I know there's going to be games that are close calls. You got, of course, got Alabama. You got Texas A&M. You got Oklahoma. That's going to be a big rivalry game. Eli Drinkowitz right now is the most hated man in Norman for stealing Caden Green in the middle of the night. That's a rivalry that is going to be renewed and one that was huge in the Big 12 that's coming on over to the SEC. But there's so much returning production offensively with Brady Cook, with Luther Burden, with Theo Weiss. You bring in Marcus Carroll, a really good running back from the Sun Belt Conference. You upgrade your offensive line. Yeah, you lost Javon Foster, but Caden Green's coming on in. You also bring over Marcus Bryant from SMU. You have some good defensive players. They just got landed Khalil Jacobs yesterday from South Alabama. Corey Batoon beat out his former boss for a guy. Like, can we just appreciate that for a moment? And their schedule is manageable. Yeah, Missouri 100% should be in the postseason picture. In fact, I have Ole Miss as a team that I listed as one that I would write in permanent Sharpie. Missouri's not that far behind them either. Tennessee, if Tennessee is who I think that they can be offensively, they may have to win like TCU did in 2022. But again, if you win, you win. That's all you're asking for. You have to realize that Josh Heupel finally is going to get the offense the way that he's always wanted. What are you talking about, Cole? How is that something that is possible? Well, I'm glad that you remember recruiting and that Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker committed to Jeremy Pruitt. And they both stuck around when Josh Heupel came into the building from UCF, but they were not quarterbacks that were handpicked by him. They were decided on who was going to be the starter, but neither one was the actual front runner to win the job. And then they end up having really good results with either coordinator, and I get Nico Iamaleava. And now you also get some really good young up-and-coming talent. I love the addition of Chris Brazzell. I think he is a phenomenal wide receiver from Tulane. I also really love the addition of Holden Stales, the tight end from Notre Dame. He comes on over. Mikey Matthews, people are talking about him. Deontay Thornton said in an interview during spring football, he is going to be unstoppable. And if you watch his high school film, you're not entirely wrong on this one. And so you bring in two really good wide receivers, still have Squirrel White, still have Brew McCoy. If your defense is not basically having more holes than Swiss cheese in the secondary, 9-3 is plausible, 10-2 is plausible, 11-1 is not entirely off the table. Yeah, you got to play Alabama and Georgia, but you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Why is it so hard to imagine a team like Tennessee not getting into the postseason picture? Same with Oklahoma State. You have the right coach, that does about 50% of the heavy lifting. You have a quality roster returning, that does about 35% of the lifting. So now we're talking about that 15% where the schedule just has to bounce in your favor. You have Mike Gundy. You have the second most returning production among all Power 4 schools, only behind Iowa State. You have an elite running back that might be able to actually win the Heisman Trophy in Ollie Gordon. You have good depth behind him. You have a returning defense with 10 starters back in the saddle. You have a schedule that's manageable. On top of all of that, you also still have Brennan Presley there. You also have Alan Bowman there. You also don't have to play Texas and Oklahoma. So where am I missing with Oklahoma State? Like, I'm not high on them whatsoever, but that's just because I don't trust Alan Bowman going in for his final MD for college football. But regardless of that, I talk about Boone Pickens Stadium. I talk about Stillwater. This is not some run-of-the-mill secondary program. There's a reason why they could be the flagship of the Big 12, because the atmosphere, the camaraderie, and more importantly, the animosity inside of that stadium when all you're hearing is bum, 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 sticks rattling. You can't get a play off. You got to call a timeout. The fan base is roaring with eruption of you being a factor in that game and then returning production. Yeah, if Mike Gundy doesn't get to the playoffs like he should have a few years ago, we're talking a lot differently about Oklahoma State. There is a very good shot that, yes, eventually they should be a contender. Also, let's talk about NC State. I love this NC State roster. I've been high on NC State. Many people know how I feel about this team. Something that I've always made clear. I think that when you get a mid-tier program that is able to have a schedule bode well in their favor, like the Wolfpack will, you stand a chance. They don't have to go up against the big-time players in the ACC until they reach Charlotte. On top of that, every other game feels like it's a coin flip. You do upgrade at quarterback. You still have one of the best wide receivers in the country that nobody talks about in Casey Compassion. You bring over Justin Rogers, and we've seen this trend before where a wide receiver doesn't pan out at Ohio State. Shocker, there's so many. And then they go and they ball out at another school. Yeah, that's what's going to, I think, happen here. You also get Justin Jolly, really good flex tight end. Reminds me of like lesser brand Kyle Pitts. Like, you know, when people say, oh, just go get the Kirkland brand. Yeah, that's Justin Jolly. Just was phenomenal last year for UConn because we all remember what UConn did. They're going to be a threat. I don't know if they're going to be the favorites in the ACC as the dark horse conversation. But when you have Grayson McCall to work with Robert and you still have a great defense. You still have a very potent run game. I'm believing in what's going on in Raleigh. I believe what's going on with Dave Duran. The Pack are hunting this year, and I think they may be hunting for a college football playoff spot, and they may actually get the bait. Kansas State. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this team because of, again, I just feel like I'm mentioning Big 12 after Big 12 after Big 12. It wouldn't be shocking. Again, schedule's manageable. They have one of the best coaches in college football with Chris Kleinman. That kind of is getting lost in translation. Can we just also real fast just appreciate that for a second? He is so underrated at this point with Lance Leipold, with Mike Gundy, with now you get Kyle Whittingham on in. Would you not be shocked to see Kleinman eventually make it to the SEC or a Big Ten school where he gets that garneration and finally gets to be considered what I already believe and know he is, premier with developing talent? He's got an offense that's going to be able to do so much and so uniquely. They get a good offensive line, which is going to do wonders for Dylan Edwards. People, I honestly think, forgot that Dylan Edwards was a really good running back coming out of high school. He also gets to split carries with DJ Giddens. And he also gets to split carries with Avery Johnson. So, manageable schedule, good offensive line, definitely a great head coach. What am I missing here? Honestly, I have no idea at this point. Two actually group of 5 school teams. Boise State. Boise State got one of the best quarterbacks in the country that was in the transfer portal, Malachi Nelson. We also know that they are the favorites year in and year out to win the Mountain West. And they're going to have a game that will be a litmus test for them to truly dictate where they stand. Week 2, Oregon. In Oregon, at Autzen. Close out the year with games against San Diego State, brand new head coach, Nevada, brand new head coach, San Jose State, brand new head coach, Wyoming, brand new head coach, Oregon State, brand new head coach. Yeah, you have a good offense. Chris Marshall ends up taking over as the legit number 1 receiver. You still have a great defensive front. I'm looking at Spencer Danielson, and I'm saying you're probably going to be in the running for Mountain West Coach of the Year. You're definitely going to be in the running for the college football playoff. And finally, one team that I've already talked about, Memphis is the one roster I would bet from the group of 5 to actually win a playoff game in 2024. They returned 68% of, 70% of their production from last season, including your number 1 receiver in Rock Thomas, including your leading rusher, including your starting quarterback in Seth Hennigan, who might be the most underappreciated quarterback in college football. Manageable schedule. You play in the American Conference, so this is the one conference that I feel like is somewhat of an upgrade over the other group of 5 schools. You get Florida State on the road. Imagine you play that one close. South Florida on the road. Minus that, where's the game? It's a rebuilding year for UTSA. You still have Charlotte. Like Biff Poggi looked awesome without a shirt on. He also does not have a great offense to where you maybe want to cover it up. Tulane, love the roster. Love what they have in John Summerall. Still going to be kind of a rebuilding year. There's one team that's going to be battle tested. There's going to be one team that's proven from the group of 5 level on a regular basis to go toe-to-toe with anybody. I think it's Memphis. And again, they make it to the playoff. They're going to win a playoff game. I'm absolutely buying it. Those are my teams that I think actually are going to be first-time playoff winners. Not everyone's going to get in. You know that. I know that. But regardless, a lot of them I think will find their way into the dozen dance. But let me know in the comment section down below. Who did I miss? Who am I right on? Who am I wrong on? Tell me what you want to see moving forward with these type of videos. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Go ahead and leave me a comment. Also, make sure you tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of pros, and college football fans everywhere about this channel because we're on the race to become the number 1 college football community. Until next time, folks, I am Cole Thompson. I'm just saying it, and later. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. That's awesome. Thank you so much. But before you leave, make sure that you hit subscribe. And if you want to check out any of our other great work, make sure you click on one of the videos here. Am I pointing at the right spot? I'm not entirely sure. I'm really not.